Looking into a mirror and being honest with yourself is especially hard, particularly if you're part of an ideology that makes you witch hunt and bury that mirror, entirely to forget its existence. And surprisingly today we're going to be looking at a man who has buried that mirror, but he has now found it again. He's digged it up, cleaned it off, and is going to have a good long look.
Because sometimes you gotta look inward to figure out what the fuck went wrong. Today, I'm unboxing liberal elitism.
I'm interested in your use of the term liberal elitism. I mean, you could have just said the left or liberals like a lot of people say and lumped yourself in with everybody else, but you specifically chose that term. I mean, it does have a bunch of definitions. Some people use it as a positive kind of term to refer to the soft-spoken intellectuals. Some people just blindly scream it at others in an attempt to close down a conversation and say, you don't agree with me, therefore you're an elitist liberal. But the negative way you talk about it here, I kinda like to believe that it's the last definition, which is someone who is identifying as a liberal, but is so out of touch with working people, with ordinary people, so out of touch with reality that they just don't even see reality as the way it is. And if that's the term you're working with, then I think that's even more interesting.
Hey friends, I'm Dylan Marin, and I unbox the hottest intangible ideologies on the market, and this week I'm checking out a product that I think I've been blindly worshipping for a really long time. So dig right in with me to face some hard truths.
Fortunately for me, I had my epiphany looking into the mirror when I wasn't in front of a camera, when I wasn't on the internet. So I kind of understand what you're going through here, but it must be much worse when you're doing it in front of a camera for a YouTube video. It's not just something that randomly happens overnight. It is quite a difficult thing. I think I'm the one who's looking into a mirror as much as you are. I can really identify with that.
Sometimes it sucks to look into a mirror.
But it is better for you in the end.
First up, thank you. It is an echo chamber. Only hear what you want to hear and give yourself a skewed sense of what an argument is.
I mean, this just isn't exclusive to SJWs, obviously. But judging by the fact that you usually get a certain number of likes on each one of your videos, and that actually kind of matches up with the number of dislikes that you got on this one. So it seems to me that quite a few people don't want to look in the mirror, or rather, they don't want you to.
Check it out. Here's my opinion. Well, here's my opinion that is slightly different from yours, but ultimately we're on the same side. Go f yourself! No two people could ever be more different!
Close, but replace the last line of dialogue with a personal insult or some sort of thing that makes sure that it wasn't even apparent that there was an argument in the first place. Maybe even a threat. Throw that in as well. And I also like how the bowl you put above your head also looks like a glass ceiling.
Engage in unnecessary arguments to avoid real ones.
Or just block people?
Excellent! It's big words. Select your vocabulary from this pile of words to show how much better you are than others by endeavoring to tackle the esoteric linguistic establishment of elitism without confronting the vexing paradigm that you haphazardly constructed for yourself.
I don't mind big words. I really love odd words. But if there's a simple way to communicate an idea that it communicates it in an accurate way, why not do that? And yeah, I was also obsessed with words. It is just odd how there's a certain type of pattern of behavior when you have this kind of ideology. It's kind of creepy.
Sweet. It is a safety pin to help identify allies amidst very real threats of harassment. Oh, but then there is another safety pin to critique that safety pin.
I've never properly grasped the idea of allies. Not really. Not even when I was kind of thinking that it was a good thing. Looking at it now, I don't really see why you should swap out friends for allies. If you see people as allies rather than friends, then you will be staying bitter and detached, and it will be even harder to get rid of that.
Now, both sides make valid points and should be heard, but unfortunately neither performing allyship nor critiquing the performance of allyship will do anything to stop Muslims, immigrants, LGBTQ folks, people of color, and women from being harassed on the daily.
Almost. You almost included men with everyone else. You almost made it look like men were humans as well. I mean, I wasn't expecting it all to just go away, but almost there. I suppose that's one of the hardest things to let go of, because that is one of the most fundamental kind of core values of what feminism has become. The idea that men are somehow separate from you as society as a whole. We should view them as something else. It does seem like that's the last type of thinking that leaves people when they decide to actually properly take a look at what they believe in. I think I remember something like that when I was taking a look at what I believed in. It is funny how there is a pattern, especially when it comes to deprogramming yourself.
This is helpful. It is a large pointing finger. Now use it to identify who is really to blame. The DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazile, WikiLeaks, James Comey, Hillary, Bernie, working class white people, college educated white women, black voters. Let this encourage you to yell and always make you feel right.
Don't forget, it also points at yourself so that you can virtue signal to everyone about how not bad you are. And let's not forget, if you are beyond the point of hope, you can also use it while pointing at yourself to shield how blackened and charred your heart is from everyone else.
All right, now there is one last thing in here.
I think I know what the last thing is. You know, it really is as if I'm opening that box as well, or at least watching a past version of myself do that. It's quite interesting.
It's me. All right, well, this is honestly pretty embarrassing.
It kind of is embarrassing. I mean, again, I was kind of doing this myself. It probably is more embarrassing when you're doing it on camera. And when the embarrassment fades, if you're unlucky enough, a kind of self-hatred sets in a little bit. I hope you don't get that. Some people do. It seems to make it a bit more difficult. But regardless of that, at least you have motivation now to make sure that other people don't really get stuck into that stuff as well.
Okay. All right, that is it for me, friends, but remember, whether you consciously use this product, hate it with a passion, or are currently composing a private message to me telling me how to kill myself, remember, hate crimes are literally happening every day, so let's not let our egos get in the way of trying to stop them. Bye.
Be careful and make sure that you're talking about actual hate crimes and not saying that the thought itself is a hate crime. I mean, you're not going to change anyone's opinion if you say that that thought is a hate crime. In fact, you're just going to make them double down and make it even worse. That is why people argue that free speech is so important. You need to be able to engage with people. How can you tell them that their idea is a bad thing if they're not allowed to express it so that you can actually go into that conversation in the first place? If you ban people from saying that stuff, you will really make a rise in hate crimes instead. I mean, physical hate crimes. So the reason that it took me so long to actually get to this is because the first time I looked at it, I was questioning a couple things that made me hesitate to actually believe it. And I don't mean that in a way of, I don't forgive anybody who's done anything wrong. If you make a mistake, then you're not allowed to correct it or something. I just mean that there were a couple inconsistencies. I mean, if you look at Seriously.tv, they don't really seem to have changed as well. At least not from skimming over some of the stuff. So that kind of brings the question, does Dylan make his own videos and just upload it and they don't control what he says? Because if not, then why would they let him upload something like this? Unless it was some sort of satire. Or maybe he told them that it was him being sarcastic. Because otherwise it just doesn't really make sense. It doesn't seem like they would let him upload this. It doesn't seem like something that they would want him to do. Second, Dylan's personal channel, Dylan Marin, has this series called Every Single Word Spoken by a Person of Color. So it has that title and then it has like a movie name and then he'll go through making this montage of exactly that every single time someone black or brown or whatever speaks in that movie. And it's usually really short, so that's kind of his point, like, we need more representation kind of thing. Now, he hasn't actually uploaded in 7 months, which means that I'm curious to see what his next upload would be. Because if he keeps going along that line, or even keeping up with this other series that he has, I haven't watched it myself, but just by the name, I think I know what it's about. It's called White Men in Peril or something, and it looks as sarcastic and snarky as it sounds. What would his next upload be? Because if it is just a continuation of what he usually does, I am questioning if he actually did this video completely honestly. The only reason that I know who this guy is, just outside of Seriously.tv, is because there's a podcast called Welcome to Night Vale that I actually listen to a lot, and I didn't stop listening to it for any particular reason. It was just, I didn't have enough time, and it was just going on, so I decided to stop for a while, and then I just never went back to it. Just, didn't bother. But as well, I also noticed that during some of the episodes, it just progressively got more and more kind of regressive in a way. There were just these really obvious social commentary kind of things. Like, there was this wall, and the wall came down and everybody met together and they realized that they weren't so different. And I get that that's a good thing in that story. I'm completely fine with that. But then, just the way that the characters were speaking and everything, in that context, it just seemed kind of mean-spirited and out of spite. Just, they were trying to target it at Donald Trump and saying that he was a racist. And then there's this other thing with one of the characters who, they're white, I think, and they're wearing one of those Indian headdress kind of things. And there's just this emphasis on how that makes him a douchebag all of a sudden. His character is just so evil because he happens to wear that and culturally appropriate. And I thought that was kind of annoying as well, because you don't know why someone's wearing that. Maybe they just think it's a fashion accessory or something. That's not a bad thing. I mean, if I see something that connects to the sort of culture that my family's in, I see somebody wearing something that connects to that, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't see why it's a bad thing. If anything, I think it's kind of cool that they're just embracing different cultures. I don't see what's wrong with that. It doesn't make them an asshole, no matter what their skin color is. So that kind of bugged me as well. And I haven't really listened to that yet, so I don't know how the show is going. That's just another thing that I'm kind of curious about. There's just all these things that don't really add up when you think of him releasing this video. I don't know how he got it out there. I don't know how he got it past people. So that's really why I hesitated, I guess. And also, he hasn't really, at least by the time I'm looking at it now, he hasn't uploaded another one of those unboxing things. So even if he just reverts back to what he usually does, even if he said it was some sort of prank or something, well, I guess it was still kind of relevant, because it was like I was looking at a past version of myself, which I thought was an interesting experience. So even then, I think I'm fine with it. I hope that this is a spark of some kind of change. Because if it's not, and he just puts that mirror back into the ground again, that will be incredibly frustrating and, well, kind of sad, really. Just sad.